Hello, my relatives. Welcome to another program, Eagle and Condor. My name is Tony Gonzalez with my co host, Bismarck Delgado. And today we begin by celebration of this weekend and on through tomorrow, Monday, 14th, Indigenous Peoples Day. So we'll be talking about Indigenous Peoples Day, the 50-year reunion anniversary of the recovery, reoccupation of Alcatraz Island from November 1969 on through June of 71. And we'll also have Bismarck Delgado talking to us about the Bay Area community events, the calendar, if you will. And then we'll be talking about very clear subjects that are being discussed in the community. And before we close this half-hour segment, we will be watching a video, Taking Alcatraz. It's a film produced, directed by John and Grace DeSoto Ferry, and I'm sure you'll find it very interesting. That's 40 minutes, so we'll be doing this 20-minute segment. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague here, Bismarck Delgado, for informing us of what's going on in the Bay Area.
All right. Hello, I'm Bismarck Delgado. Good evening and good afternoon, good morning, my relatives of the Sacred Turtle Island. On Thursday nights will be the powwow dance and drum practice at the Intertribal Friendship House in Oakland, California. That's located at 523 International Boulevard. That's been going on for the last 20 years. So we here at Eagle and Condor American Indian Movement also like to strive the importance of learning the culture, the songs, and everything that we defend and stand up for and continue on the tradition that our ancestors have left us. And so for those who want more information on the dance and drum practice at the Intertribal Friendship House, the drum styles are Northern style singing and Southern style singing. And there's different styles of songs to learn to sing. On the Northern style, that's where the singers sing in the high-pitched tone, and the songs that are offered to learn are intertribal, grass dance, which is usually for young men, the crow hop, which is just one chop beat, a double beat crow hop, the two steps, that's basically for couples. Sometimes it can also be called an owl dance, and also a round dance too, where the community gets together and dances in a circle and acknowledges the ancestors that left us before us. And that is what goes on at the Intertribal Friendship House on every Thursday night from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And also for women and girls, the women can also learn the fancy shawl dancing and jingle dress styles. The men's also can learn the fancy traditional dress styles for mostly what you see at the exhibition at powwows. Grass dance, traditional dance requires a lot of feathers for making on the regalia that's used that you would see displayed at the powwows, and also crow hop and round dance too. Everybody is also encouraged to bring a potluck and share food and song and dance and come and meet more people and meet new people and rekindle with old friends from the past. And it's also fun, fitness, and friendship, and that is the slogan for the dance and drum practice. Also, speaking of the Intertribal Friendship House, on November 9th, 2019, I believe that's a Saturday, the Intertribal Friendship House will celebrate the 64th anniversary of its existence. The Intertribal Friendship House was created in 1955, and it was a place where relocated Native Americans to find themselves and coalesce in a place to meet in the inner cities when they were being relocated from the reservations and other areas where Indian people had lived and become unfamiliar to the city and metropolitan areas. So to celebrate 64 years of survival and existence at the Intertribal Friendship House, that will be happening on November 9th, 2019. So you can also check out the dance and drum practices. There's also a Monday night Zumba class as well. But the Thursday night dance and drum practice is always every Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. And so you will see some of those displays, everything that is learned from that course over at Intertribal Friendship House, you'll see a lot of the powwow dancers, much as what you've seen this weekend at the Indigenous Peoples Day powwow, and also the powwow that was yesterday or earlier today at Edison Elementary in San Francisco. And so coming on October 14th, this is the big day. We Native Americans protest Columbus Day. We don't celebrate Columbus Day. And we gather at Alcatraz, the rock in San Francisco Bay, to have a sunrise ceremony and to gather and pray for all those people that had suffered for the last 500 plus years of genocide and invasion, and also to meet more people. The Alcatraz rock is a very safe place to be. It's a place where we can all, view each other's cultures, express each other's feelings about each other's tribes, be fascinated with each other's tribal identities, and learn a tribe that is not your own as well, and to also acknowledge the brave, bold, brave women and men from back in the day in the 1960s that took it over 50 years ago. So that will be on Sunday. That I believe the first boat leaves at 4:30 or maybe 5:30 p.m. at Pier 53. But also after the sunrise ceremony will be the Alcatraz Canoe Journeys that goes on from 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. And those gatherings will be at Aquatic Park, which is a little further ways down, but still in the same San Francisco Bay area. And also later on, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., it's for elders only. It is an Alcatraz gathering for elders only, and that is people are to meet at the Hyde Street Pier, and that's located at 2905 Hyde Street. So that is it for this week of the Eagle and Condor calendar of events. It's a big Indigenous Peoples Day week, and also too, segueing into the Alcatraz Sunrise Ceremony, we also like to give a big credit to our host, Mr. Tony Gonzalez, for hosting and overseeing that ceremony for quite some time, for several decades now. And, Tony, if you talk a little bit about why we gather on Alcatraz, specifically in October.
Oh, thank you very much, Bismarck. And just a slight correction, you said Sunday for the Alcatraz gathering. That would be on Monday, and that would be at Pier 33. Okay, and the first boat starts leaving around 5:15. And indeed, I was involved in that for many decades, and still am co-hosting a radio show with KPFA Liberation Alcatraz Radio, that a reenactment, if you will, of John Trudell during his time of leadership at Alcatraz from November of '69 through June of 1971, 19 months on that island. And so that would be on Monday, the 14th. And also, it marks 527 years of Indigenous peoples' resistance to colonization throughout the Western Hemisphere. So it is a day to commemorate, as we all went to the powwow last Saturday, the 12th, officially October 12th, Dia de la Raza, as it's said throughout the Americas. And so, indeed, a coordination of Indian peoples throughout the Americas. We're commemorating that day, 527 years of Indian resistance to colonization throughout the Americas, and sending a message that we're now changing the narrative, if you will, not just here in North America, but as we're witnessing in Central South, the Pacific, and Africa, and the Scandinavian countries, Indian peoples, are indeed rising up. So yes, I thank you for that, Bismarck. And also, I wanted to mention that give a big thanks to the San Francisco Arts Commission, and more specific to Ms. Barbara Mambi Huerta, who's helped organize the Celebrating Interwoven Histories, Identities, and Contributions, and that is the continuous thread celebrating our interwoven histories, identities, and contributions. And with that, over 100 photos of Indian peoples in leadership roles, youth and elders were taken, and by Huila Sinhan Ini, Jean Malisane, and Britt Bradley. Okay, that's their work, and you can see it here in San Francisco at the War Memorial Building there as well. So a big congratulations to the San Francisco Arts Commission for stepping up on that. Also, Bismarck, you mentioned the Alcatraz Canoe Journeys 2019, and people can go to that website and get more information on that, particularly the elders' journey that people can join up there at Aquatic Park. Also, I wanted to make mention that the October Sunday, today and tomorrow, the 14th, is the 9th American Indian Movement West International Film Festival. And today the film festival begins at San Francisco at the Eric Casada Center at 518 Valencia Street from 2 p.m. to 7, so you'll have time after this show to get on over if you're nearby and see some of those feature documentaries and several short videos. And then on Monday, after Alcatraz and many other activities that go on during the day, later in the evening at the Roxy Theater in San Francisco at 317 16th Street, right near the corner of Valencia, we will be screening at 7 p.m. a film documentary called AMA, A-M-A. That's also a Navajo Dene word for mother. Of course, it's in Spanish and many other languages as well, AMA. And it's a very stark and sorrowful and very important film to see about the sterilization of Indian women that has been taking place here in the United States, particularly in the 60s and 70s, and whereby Jean Whitehorse as well as Yvonne Swan will be giving testimony in this film. So try to make it very important. This film, Ama, that will be screened at the Roxy on Monday night, is also supported and endorsed locally by the Intertribal Friendship House in Oakland, which Bismarck just mentioned about their many activities, and also the Native American Health Center from Oakland and San Francisco supporting and endorsing this. So all of you who are familiar with them, you'll know that this is a good film for you to watch. The Native American Health Center, by the way, has been around since 1972, and it's now and has been under the leadership of Martin Wakazu. So a big salute to both those organizations for co-sponsoring this for the film festival. Another film that you may have time to see today would be the film by PBS with Valentin Lopez. It's a short, but it talks about Indian peoples, particularly in California, are rising up and taking the rightful place in today's society. And my relatives, I wanted to mention that as we were looking at Bismarck Delgado and the activities, you see behind him there the picture of Leonard Peltier. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's over to the side there of Bismarck Delgado. Maybe we can get a shot there. Yeah, so go to the website for Leonard Peltier, who is leonardpeltier.info, and you will see that he is a political prisoner. He's in there for 44 years now for a crime he did not commit. So check that out. And also the website for AIM West for more details on the film and that is aim-west.org for more information for the film festival and other activities that are coming up, particularly in November. AIM West will be sponsoring once again the AIM West Coast Conference on November 25 and 26. That will be held at the Answer Coalition office in San Francisco, 2969 Mission Street from 9 to 5:30. And also the Unthanksgiving Eagle and Condor Feast hosted by AIM West as well at 362 Cap Street. That would be on Wednesday the 27th, the feast at Cap Street, 362 Cap Street, and that will be from 4 to 10 o'clock. Okay, and then Thursday the 28th, of course, it being Turkey Day, we will all be at Alcatraz again, leaving from Pier 33. First boat starts leaving about 4:30, so I suggest get your tickets even now because many people will be there. And also on November 30, AIM West will be having another Red and Blues musical concert. That will be Saturday, November 30 at the address 362 Cap Street in San Francisco, and that will be from doors open at 6:30 and the bands begin at 7 through 10 o'clock. So look all that up on our website, as I said, at aim-west.org. And now, my relatives, we're coming to a close, so we do have a special film for you, video, Taking Alcatraz, produced, directed, John and Grace DeSoto Ferry. So, see you once again.
In 1868, the United States government signed the Fort Laramie Treaty, which guaranteed that all abandoned lands once owned by Native Americans would be returned to them. Alcatraz Island, no longer a state penitentiary since 1963, fell under the terms of this treaty. There were over 500 treaties. None have ever been honored by the government. In the 1960s, there were 3 attempts by Native Americans to occupy the island. The third one, in November of 1969, proved successful, and the Indians held the island for 19 months. Tim Finley, an investigative reporter who covered the occupation for the San Francisco Chronicle, stated that although many were instrumental, the takeover would not have been possible without Adam Fortunate Eagle, then known as Adam Nordwall.
We're going to take Alcatraz, but if any of you guys tip it off to the government or the media, I said, we're going to call it off.
To the great white father and all his people, we, the Native Americans, reclaim the land known as Alcatraz Island in the name of all American Indians by right of discovery.
We, the Indians of all tribes on Alcatraz and the Bannock organization in the Bay Area, negotiated with the U.S. government in good faith concerning the planning grant proposal to provide funds for the development of the island. We dealt with the government on their terms. They asked us to submit a proposal, which we did, expecting them to honor their statements concerning Indian self-determination. The U.S. government speaks and has spoken in the past of having Indian people control their own lives and their own destiny, and yet the proposal that we submitted to the U.S. government concerning Alcatraz was rejected. Not only was it turned down, it was never considered.
After they established the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they failed to include the American Indian. So we have had certain inalienable rights withheld from us that all of you people in America, you take it for granted. These freedoms of liberty and justice for all does not extend to the American Indian.
When Bobby and I arrived in San Francisco and we both got jobs, started to work, we never thought or even heard about the word Indian activist or any other kind of activist at the 1950. But it wasn't until 1962 when Cy Williams and his wife Aggie, both Chippewa Indians from Minnesota, would come to the bowling alley where Bobby and I were in the leagues having a great time. We were assimilated into society, would be the poster children of the BIA in that time. But Cy Williams started giving us information that we were unaware of. What we were aware of was suddenly more and more Indians were showing up in Oakland and San Francisco in numbers we never saw before. You know, we would see guys coming back from Vietnam and all of that, old schoolmates of mine. We'd have the occasional visit there, but then now more and more Indians.
Census figures show there are 42,000 Native Americans living in the Bay Area. Only Los Angeles has more of these urban Indians. Alcatraz inspired many of them to come here, for that island takeover in 1969 signaled a new era of Indian unity and determination.
So in 1962, Cy Williams would keep at us, and he'd come to our home in San Leandro and he says, you know, Adam, we need leadership. We really need leadership. And I had never thought about getting involved in political activities like that. Sure, we wanted our kids to have a cultural identity. That's why we'd come to the Fallon Reservation to meet their grandparents, or to go to my reservation at Red Lake. That was cultural. But the political side of things, we never had an idea about doing anything until Cy Williams come along. At that time, with all the influx of Indians, little groups started to get together. The Chippewa Club, the Haskell alumni, the United Paiutes, the Pomo Club, the Ladies Club, and there was about 12 groups, diverse little clubs. And so I called them all together. At the Intertribal Friendship House in 1962, we agreed that we needed a collective voice, a stronger voice in the community, and to be able to express ourselves in a better way, perhaps. So we organized the United Bay Area Council of American Indian Affairs. Every group had their delegate there. It was like a little mini Indian United Nations there at the Friendship House. And that got me started in working with relocated Indians, young Indians that came out on adult vocational training. So the United Council started sending up social programs throughout Oakland. We had staged a monthly powwow at the auditorium. We had even bought band instruments for a little band of Indians. And we had our own music, and we staged weekly dances at the auditorium and the ballroom. And so we had activities going on, cultural activities, social activities that United Council sponsored. And we were all doing this out of our concern for people. There was no money for it. No, we didn't look at the aspect of money. It was something that there was an unmet need, because when relocation, see what happened, and we started to find out, is that in 1953, the government had passed a termination policy, House Resolution 108, which was now a complete reversal of history. Instead of pushing Indians on the reservation, now the government was shipping Indians off the reservations to 8 main centers, cities throughout the United States. And to emphasize that and to move it along, in 1958 they established the Indian Relocation Program to give federal funds and one-way tickets for Indians on the reservation who signed up for relocation. They would go to places like Oakland where they had a relocation center. They were in turn set up to find employment assistance for the relocatees. Now, once those relocated Indians got their first paycheck, it didn't matter if it was temporary, part-time, as long as they got that paper in their hand that said paycheck, the government, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, cut them off. Now, many of them found themselves stranded. So the concerns we had in the United Council was, how are we going to help our people? A lot of them were in desperate situations. They didn't know their way around cities. A lot of them didn't know how to use transportation like city buses and all of that. So there was a real growing need. So once we started the United Council, the very first year, we also started our annual powwow in Ewell Field, which was a football field downtown Oakland. And we started what we call a pageant. And we had singers and dancers and Indian performances out there. And we raised $1,500. And that was big money in those days. And that we used then to supplement student aid for guys, if they had a car, could afford a car, but they couldn't afford tires. Well, we'd get them tires. You know, we do little things like that that just give the people a boost. And we did this until when 1964 come along, something else happened in the Indian community because we were starting to have activities among ourselves, and the awareness of how the government was ripping off the Indians through that termination policy. The Sioux in the area decided to go to Alcatraz, which had been closed in 1962 as a federal prison. So the Sioux decided to test Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868. So 5 of those guys, Richard McKenzie, Chalk Cody, and others, Means, they all got together the idea they're going to go out and claim Alcatraz, individual allotments. And as chairman of the United Council, we're going to lend our support, and other council members, Tom and Dorothy Brown and us, we all went out to the island with them. And the Sioux made a beautiful presentation. Their eagle feather war bonnets carrying the American flag. That was a very dramatic thing. They filed their claims and then left the island. And since I was with them, you know, the idea of Alcatraz, here's an abandoned federal prison. It wasn't worth nothing to nobody. It was deteriorating. And the Sioux tested their treaty in federal court, and the judge threw it out. They felt they had no bearing, legal status to claim Alcatraz, and the judge ruled if anybody had the right to claim the island, it would be native tribes of California. So he let it go at that, and the Indians backed off. And so things, as far as Alcatraz, lay dormant for years. In the meantime, the United Council kept on with our social and cultural activities. And we were in the United Council since the Pomos were affiliated. We would go up to Clear Lake, and we'd participate in their roundhouse ceremonies. The big heads, shake heads, flathead dancers would come out in their ritualistic, beautiful way. We just loved all of it. And their feasting, oh, that was good. Abalone and catfish and everything else, and was at their feast. It was very great, you know. And so we kept on going until 1968. The government declared Alcatraz surplus property. Well, I saw an opportunity. That's my job. By that time, I'd worked myself up in the termite company, you know, starting off as a humble helper, by 1968, I worked from helper to foreman, to being an inspector, to being a general manager, a vice president, and by 1968, I owned my own company, First American Termite Company. Now that gave me a little bit more means to reach out, branch out, because I had the financial backing of my own company to carry on my activities. So when Alcatraz was declared surplus property, I said, here's an opportunity to do something on another level. So we started coming up with concepts. How, and if we took that island, had the island, what could we do with it? Education center, spiritual center, environmental ecology center. We had 5 different ideas on how we could utilize that island for the benefit of American Indians. And I started writing the proclamation. That proclamation was different than any other Indian tactic in history. It used satire and humor. No other event in Indian history used satire and humor as a weapon against the United States government. It was always confrontation. It was massacres and all of that over and over. But here on Alcatraz, we were going to be warriors without weapons.
To the great white father and all his people, we, the Native Americans, reclaim the land known as Alcatraz Island in the name of all American Indians by right of discovery. We wish to be fair and honorable in our dealings with the Caucasian inhabitants of this land, and hereby offer the following treaty. We will purchase said Alcatraz Island for $24 in glass beads and red cloth, a precedent set by the white man's purchase of a similar island about 300 years ago. We know that $24 in trade goods for these 16 acres is more than was paid when Manhattan Island was sold. But we know that the land values have risen over the years. Our offer of $1.24 per acre is greater than the 47 cents per acre the white men are now paying the California Indians for their land.
We turned history around to let society see themselves as we see them historically. And again, we stated the 5 basic reasons why we wanted that island. So the proclamation was our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, so to speak. And that's how we started off with the idea of taking Alcatraz. On November 9th, 1969, a fire burned down the San Francisco Indian Center. And I immediately went over there and I talked to Earl Livermore and the director, and I said, you know, I have an idea, a plan, how we can get a new Indian center for you guys. Well, and I told him about the United Council's plan to take Alcatraz. And so I got Don Patterson, Earl Livermore of the San Francisco Indian Center, said they agreed to come on board. And we, from that time on, from the fire, the next event was a Halloween party at Tim Finley's home in Sausalito. He was a reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle who I had befriended several years earlier. And I knew a lot of the reporters and journalists in the Bay Area by that time. And so a lot of them were at that Halloween party. And we took Richard Oakes and his wife. We took them to the event. In the process of this wonderful Halloween party, I was able to introduce or tell the reporters briefly, I said, we're going to take Alcatraz. But if any of you guys tip it off to the government or the media, I said, we're going to call it off. Because if it gets out beforehand, we're going to be shot down. So you got to keep it secret. Then I introduced Richard Oakes. I said, he's going to lead the charge. November 9th, 1969, I had arranged for 5 boats to take a whole group of us out the island. I had all the United Council members who had tribal outfits. Put them on. We want to look Indianish. This is an Indian event, and we got to look Indian out there. And they all agreed with that. And So that early morning of November 9th, I brought our children along with us going over the bridge to San Francisco from Oakland, and we arrived at Fisherman's Wharf, and Papke, our member from San Quentin, came out. Adam, we got trouble. I said, what's up? He says, somebody scared the boats off. Run the boats off. There's no boats. God darn, now we have all these Indians around here, and we have all the news media, the photographers, the cameramen, and everybody. And boy, my name's gonna be mud if we don't pull off something. So I gave Richard Oakes the proclamation. I said, Richard, keep these guys busy. Go over there to that pier. Read it to them. I gotta go find a boat. So Richard went one way, I went down the other way. I saw a two-masted bark, a sailboat, big one. And there's the captain standing there looking at what the heck is all this commotion at Fisherman's Wharf about. And I told him quickly, you know, he thought it was being a movie out there being made. But I told him, I said, we want to go to Alcatraz. He says, you know, I could take you out. No more than 50 people on board. And the media, of course. And by that time, because the media had a heads up on it, they had already rented boats, and they were out there around the island waiting for us to come on out. So we had a gang of people out there. So the morning of November 9th, we went out on the Monte Cristo. He sailed around to the west side, then the north side, going counterclockwise. And when we got to the north side, we heard a splash in the water. Richard Oakes dove overboard and started swimming toward the island, even with logging boots on. That was one incredible act. And then right after that, Indian after Indian start diving overboard, swimming toward Alcatraz, several hundred yards away. And God, the captain come up to me and said, Adam, what's going on? What's going on? I said, oh, we're going to go over and take Alcatraz. And he says, you can't do that. You can't do that. He started freaking out. He says, we're flying the flag of Canada. This can be considered an act of war. You got to stop those Indians from diving overboard. So he gave him this megaphone, and I said, no more Indians overboard. At the orders of the captain, no more Indians overboard. And then another splash. And one Indian standing next to me, he says, you know, that's the bravest son of a bitch you'll ever see. I looked at that guy. I said, why? He says, he can't swim. So we went around, and as we went straight back towards San Francisco, I still had the bullhorn. Are you through yet? Because, you know, the only guy who made it to the island that we saw was Joe Bill the Eskimo. And when he watched Richard Oakes and the guys being taken out toward the Golden Gate. Eskimo knew his tides. He waited until we got to the west side of the island, dove overboard, the tide carrying him to the island in record time. And when he got there, everybody cheered. So we went back to the mainland. Now we had to wait until all 5 of our swimmers were rounded up. When they got there, then I took them over to one of these seafood stands, got them all a bowl of hot clam chowder. Oh, that was good. Well, it was not only 5 swimmers we paid for, a whole line of Indians got there, and $75 later, I was a free man again to go back to the Indian Center to plan our next move.
The Indians' occupation of Alcatraz Island was a brief one. The 4 young braves who swam out to the island were taken off a short while later by a private boat. The fate of this island still remains undetermined in San Francisco's Board of Supervisors. Whether or not these Indians accomplished anything today, they say that their claim is a right, just one, and they'll continue to press it. Mike Mills for Newswatch.
Yeah, we're going to go back. We're not going to try. We're going to make it, man.
When do you do it? Right on.
Just as soon as possible.
How you're going to do it?
We're going to go down there if we have to steal one of the Coast Guard launches.
Some of the other Indians who were brought in here said that they were going back. They were going to take the island again. Do you share their feelings?
I certainly do. I would, well, it makes me sick to see these people come back and take our lands away from us like that. It really does. It's sickening.
We want this for our own, for us to build it and make it, either make it last or fall. but we wanted to do it on our own. What we're fighting for is we want economic opportunity.
We went back to San Francisco and we said, yes, we want to go back, take that island. So we got on the telephone and I started calling my old fishing boat buddies, Jerry's bait shop down there in Divisadero, San Francisco. We arranged for a boat to take us out that night. We all boarded that boat under cover of darkness, went out the island, and 14 Indians got off the boat before that skipper panicked and pulled away. Well, we occupied it one night. The government officials came out the next day and forest, the media was there, and the Indians were talked into leaving the island. But Richard Oakes said, we will be back. So everybody came back. Now, from November 9th to November 20th, we had to start planning again. We're not done. Now, I had already committed myself to be a delegate to a education conference in Minneapolis. And I said, I'm going to spread the word. We got the proclamation, make up a whole bunch of them to give away to, so that this is not a local incident or a regional incident. This is going to be a national American Indian issue. And by distributing those proclamations to the delegates at the Indian education, everybody understood what we're all about, and they were all cheering for it. While I'm in Minneapolis, Richard Oakes and the students and others arranged for boats through Tim Finley of Sausalito.
Can you remember the times that you have held your head high and told all your friends of your Indian claim? Proud good lady and proud good man, your great-great-grandfather from Indian blood sprang, and you feel in your heart for these ones. Oh, it's written in books and in songs that we've been mistreated and wronged. Well, over and over I hear those same words from you, good lady, and you, good man. Well, listen to me if you care where we stand, and you feel you're a part of these ones. When a war between nations is lost, the loser we know pays the cost.
It would be fitting and symbolic that ships from all over the world entering the Golden Gate would first see Indian land and thus be reminded of the true history of this nation. This tiny island would be a symbol of the great lands once ruled by free and noble Indians.
Everywhere I go, everyone I know,
Our stand is Alcatraz Island. It's a stand of self-determination, and Indians are making their stand here, and there's nobody that's going to move us from here.
What motivated us to do this is there are Indians across North America today are taking strong stands to gain back the lands that they've lost.
We understand Secretary Hickel has not responded to your proclamation yet. How long do you think it possible to stay up here?
Oh, we can stay up here as long as, I mean, you know, we can. It's indefinite how long we can stay here because we're not subject to any different type of conditions that we aren't subjected to out there in the city or on the reservation. You know, like it's always cold and, you know, you never have that much to eat anyway. So
this is
not
as comfortable as the average Indian reservation. Is that what you're saying?
It's average for an Indian way of life anyway. Now, I mean today, it's nothing different.
We're setting out offices, we're getting in new phone systems, and we're sending out letters for support, and the more time that these people give us, this gives us more time to get that support that we need, and they definitely need it throughout the country and on shore.
And he mentioned something about the island having symptoms of, what was it, hepatitis. Well, this is not true. We had another doctor come on and counter-check this, and it's not true. We're doing everything we can to maintain sanitary conditions up here. We've organized cleanup places, and Indians are. We have it down pat at this point. There's. I mentioned this in the press before. There's just a dual sense of justice in this country. We'd like an end to this, and I think this here manning the island of Alcatraz is a positive step in that direction. If they're going to treat us separately, then we'll remain separately. Thank you.
On January 3, 1970, Yvonne Oakes, oldest daughter of Richard and Anne, fell to her death while playing with other children on the building's third-story landing. Yvonne's death left her parents heartbroken. The Oakes family left Alcatraz, and Richard cut his ties with the occupation.
Are there large numbers of people leaving due to the accident in the facilities here?
The majority of these kids were college kids, so this is one reason we have lost a lot of them is because they have returned to school. Many of our kids have to return to school at, you know, like I say with mine, my three have gone, and I have one boy left here on the island. Of course, he isn't going to school. He just got back from Vietnam the 28th, so he's still here visiting with me, but the other three boys have had to return to school, so. And of course, when they left, why, there was about 20 other students left with them because they all had to enroll the same day. But as I say, the majority of them, I have bedrolls in here for about 9 kids that will be coming back on the weekends.
You don't feel that there are an inordinately high number of hazards or that there have been a large number of accidents?
Well, there are hazards here, definitely. This island is definitely a hazardous place. I mean, if you don't watch your step, I mean, anybody can have an accident.
There are controversies between leadership on the island. Now, if so, that wouldn't make you any more unique. But are there these kinds of problems? And if so, how are you trying to cope with them?
With Oakes gone, the leadership on Alcatraz changed several times because of conflict of ideas between some of the occupying tribes and mainland organizations.
The Indians held the island of Alcatraz for 19 months. And in the course of 19 months, we changed the course and direction of history. Nixon was extremely upset with the Indians being on the island. He got daily briefings from the FBI, and they even had a covert plan of the military to take back Alcatraz by force if necessary from the Indians. Operation Pelican and Operation Park. But Nixon vetoed the plan as D-Day was approaching. On June 8, 1970, 8 months into the occupation, President Nixon officially repudiated the termination policy and implemented a whole series of reforms for the Indians, both on reservations and urban Indians. Health, education, welfare programs, everything was increased. Before Alcatraz, the government had terminated 109 Indian reservations, rancherias, and bands of Indians. Wiped them out and legally in terms of recognition. But now with the ending of termination, many of those same tribes were able to come back into the fold and have their own self-government, etc. So we changed the course of history on Alcatraz, not only for the tribes, but for Alcatraz itself. Because it had been declared surplus property in 1968, the government didn't know what to do with it until we took it over. Then suddenly they had a new idea. Put Alcatraz in the national park system in 1972. And from that time on, it became a major tourist attraction in the Bay Area, bringing in 1,500,000 tourists a year to that island. That wouldn't have been possible if it hadn't been for the Indian occupation. We saved that island for the American public, and to this date, we have never been given credit for it. To this date, the tribes themselves have never given credit to Alcatraz for saving them from being terminated, because they were unaware of all this covert, secret stuff between the White House, the Indians, and the government. As the principal organizer of Alcatraz, I have to revert to an old phrase that says, never let a good deed go unpunished. The government declared me, in the aftermath of Alcatraz, they declared me to be an enemy of the state. And so they did everything covertly to destroy me in the Bay Area, my business, my teaching, everything. And that caused us to pull up stakes in California, lose everything we had, and then move to the Fallon Indian Reservation where my wife was born. You know, throughout history, the government exiled Indian leaders and chiefs who stood up against them, trying to defend their own people. And in this so-called modern age, the government's no different, because they put me out of business in California and did everything there that was ended up where my wife and I had to move back to the reservation in Fallon, Nevada. But as an enemy of the state, the government was not through with me. I was unaware of how intense their investigations of me and the kind of person that I am, or was so strong in their minds. The policy, a covert policy of 1973, in a sense, stated the government will set out a policy to discredit, misdirect, and otherwise neutralize the leadership to prevent the rise of a messiah who can electrify and unify the nationalist hate movement. And so I was put in the target of that kind of federal reprisal. And what that did was launch a comprehensive FBI investigation of me and how they could set out to discredit and to neutralize me. Here's just some of the FBI reports and memorandums to the FBI, the Secret Service, the House Un-American Committee. Oh, I was everywhere in there. And here's one of the things they did for Domestic Intelligence Division. No specific Indian groups mentioned. Nordwall is alleged to be former American Indian Movement president, San Leandro, and organizer of Indian takeover of Alcatraz Island. To say that I was a president of AIM is totally false. I never was even a member of AIM, let alone to be a leader of AIM. But because AIM was also on the hit list of the government, they put me in that same category. And so The government really went out after me, and I got just partial reports. But when you look at the documents they finally gave under the Freedom of Information Act, there wasn't much information to be redacted. This is all redacted, in other words, blotted out, censored. And so it goes on and on.
And so I say to America, I want you to remember our past. This past will give you direction for the future. Just as our people in our past, we are the spirit of the future.